Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Between the Ears. I'm Schuyler, Callihan. That's Christopher Hall. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Mountaineers Now. Give us a like as well. It is time to give our keys to the game for West Virginia, Oklahoma State. We're moving on, as Neal Brown said, from that Houston miracle, the Houston Hail Mary. Probably took a few days for a lot of the fan base to move on from that game. Maybe some of them haven't even recovered yet until we get to that next game, but we're here to try and give you some hope, maybe, about how West Virginia can get back on track this week at home against Oklahoma State. It's homecoming weekend. This is a great opportunity for West Virginia to flush that game, get another Big 12 win, get to 3-1. And we've talked about it many, many times, Chris. This schedule, there's a lot of opportunities to rack up some wins, but you got to win at home. And this is a team that West Virginia struggled to beat at home since 2013. That's actually the last time West Virginia defeated Oklahoma State, and that was with Clint Trickett, that team that went 4-8. So there's been a lot of good teams, a lot of good offenses over the years here at West Virginia between Dana and, well, maybe not so much Neal, but there's been a lot of decent teams that have come in to Oklahoma in this game against Oklahoma State and did not pull out a win. So let's just get right to it. When you look at some of the reason why behind some of those other losses to Oklahoma State, the one that sticks out to me is the one where they fell way behind. It was like 30-13 or something like that. And then they had the two touchdowns back to back. I think there was the block punt touchdown, and then they had the Kenny Robinson pick six to get them back in it. And that's really about as close as they could get. But it seems like offensively, they've kind of struggled in these games. Mike Gundy's defense, look, they've had a number of defensive coordinators over the years, but they've always played some pretty decent defense, even though Oklahoma State is a team that's generally known for their offense.
Yeah, that one of the underrated units under Gundy because his offenses were so good there for a while, especially with Brandon Weeden, has been his defense. Um, People kind of tend to forget how the Big 12 used to be with the air raid offense. Everyone was scoring a bunch of points, and they kind of got overlooked. But they were always an opportunistic defense. This year they're struggling a little bit, even though they've won the last two games. They're still giving up a lot of yards. You can kind of look at their opponents and see why that is.
Yep.
But it's still they're still trying to find their way. Midpoint of the season, they're going to try. They're going to play more complementary football right now. Kansas, they gave up a lot of points. Offense is running at a highly efficient, so that tends to happen against the Jayhawks. But Oklahoma State, slow start to begin the year. A lot of the reasons for the defense struggles was the offense not able to stay on the field, convert third downs. But now you're starting to see a little bit more life within their offense. Not they have Alan Bowman, it's really started to help their defense. So slowly, but surely, the defense is starting to get comfortable and get their feet under them a little bit.
Those two games that Neal Brown has coached against Oklahoma State in Morgantown, 3 points and 13 points. I have a feeling you're probably going to need to score more than 13 to win this game. So if you go back to what happened last week, I know we're trying to move past that and not really talk about it, but that was actually one of the bright spots of that game against Houston was the passing game kind of came to life a little bit. They pushed the ball down the field. Receivers made some plays. There were still some plays to be made out there that they left, but Garrett Green seemed to find some confidence, find some rhythm. We really talked about that leading into that game on last week's Keys to the Game episode because we said, hey, look, Garrett hasn't played a whole lot. This is his chance to get in rhythm with the bye week. You have that opportunity to get some reps with the ones, and it looked like a completely different passing game. Even Devin Carter looked more kind of like the guy everyone expected him to be. So who knows? Maybe that's the leaping point for this offense in the passing game, or that could just be Houston's just that bad on defense. Maybe it's a little bit of both. But for the passing game this week, I mean, how can you build on that? How can you take what you did last week against Houston and apply it to this week against Oklahoma State? Because, I mean, if we're just being honest, you don't want to throw for 390 yards a game because, I mean, yeah, it's nice, but if you are, that means likely you're either one, playing from behind, or two, you're playing up tempo. And that's really not what this team wants to do. They are built to kind of slow the game down, shrink it, and run the ball. So, what does this offense need to do passing wise to kind of have that same success that they did a week ago.
Play with a sense of urgency. Seen it all year. When they play with a sense of urgency, they move the ball. You can go back to Texas Tech. Texas Tech came back. It was 13-10. They went right down and scored using the passing game. So when they play with a sense of urgency, they play well. Go back to last week's second quarter. Didn't play with a sense of urgency. Had 41 total yards of offense in the second quarter. It was absolutely atrocious. Second half had to play with a sense of urgency. Played from behind most of the time. Just back and forth game. When they play like that, they succeed. It's all about executing. So again, just keep playing at that pace. Um, a bobbled pass in the end zone there goes the other way, and they went
Yeah,
over back
that's
and scored. Like they came out and started hot because they knew they had to score. So if they just take that approach on every single possession, this team, hey, you're probably looking at a 5-1 team right now. And if they play with that approach on Saturday, you're probably going to look at a 5-2 team. So I don't, there's been multiple examples throughout the season that they've shown that they can move the ball almost when they want to. It's been complementary football up to this point. But you just got to do it when you're up 7, 10, 13, whatever it is. Play like they're just going to score on the next possession because that's how they've had success when they play high pace, high tempo. It doesn't have to necessarily be tempo, but just be on your P's and Q's. Devin Carter, you mentioned Devin Carter, probably the best separation from that whole group of receivers all year. And kind of on that flea flicker, if you look what Traylon Ray did, that's a freshman selling it. That's
yeah.
very hard. That's a hard sell to get to safeties. So a lot of optimism with it. But if you're not playing like the game is on the line every possession, you're going to leave a young, talented team confidence, like a Houston team, and they're going to bite you at the end of the game. Don't leave that door open for anybody. Just keep going and putting points on the board.
Yeah, and I mean, I think going into the bye week, I may have said something about this. If I didn't, I'll say it now. We didn't know what this team would do if it had to get in one of those kind of back and forth affairs. Would they be able to answer the bell? For a minute, it didn't look like they were going to be able to. When they fell down 35-24, it kind of felt like they were on the ropes. It felt like, oh boy, this is going to get ugly at the end. Instead, they battled back. They scored 2 times in a row to take the lead with just seconds left on the clock. And to me, that shows, okay, this team can not only win ugly with their defense and running the football, playing ball control, but if they need to, and they get in one of those types of back and forth affairs, they can win those games too. Again, they didn't, but we've pointed it out 100 times. It was more than just that Hail Mary. It was more than just Garrett Green taking his helmet off. But just to show that the offense can go get scores when they absolutely have to. I mean, that throw from Garrett Green to Hudson Clement on fourth and absolutely have to have it. I mean, that was as clutch as it gets. He puts the ball right on the money. Hudson Clement makes a couple guys miss and he strolls into the end zone. That's the stuff you want to see if you're West Virginia, if you're Neal Brown, because you want to have that confidence and knowing if we need a score, we can air it out. And I think that may be something too that maybe changes a little bit. I don't think they're going to completely go away with their identity just because they found some success in the passing game. They're still going to want to hammer the football. They want to play blue collar in between the tackles. Again, that shrink the game up essentially. But if they can throw the ball with success consistently, we might see that sprinkled in a little bit more than we have.
Yeah, it really, we talked about the fast start last week, getting a faster start. Like at this point, you just need to tell them they're down 14 points to
Yeah.
start the game, and maybe everything will be crisp and ready to go. Don't expect Garrett to make every throw. He definitely missed some last week, but um,
Well, he
yeah,
had some good ones
just
too.
really. Yeah, and that's what you're going to get from any quarterback. Really, I mean, the Caleb Williams of the worlds are going to have uh, bad games like he did last week. So you just got to kind of roll with the punches. Best thing about Garrett Green is he has a short memory. He's right back up and at him, even on a bad throw. One of his receivers drops it. He's the first one to pick him up. So you got the right leader. Just really, that should have been the hard learning lesson. Even though that again they had plenty of examples before. Like hey, you guys need to play with a sense of urgency. Tough one to get because again you left a young talented team an opportunity to win the game at the end. And The crazy thing about that catch at the end, the kid that caught it ran into a WVU defender, and by the time he got his footing, the ball was just right there. So,
Yep.
yeah, don't give anyone a chance, even if it's a 0.001% chance that they could win. Don't give them that opportunity. Just put your foot on their neck and keep going, keep killing them.
Before we,
And I would say that they did start off hot last week,
yeah,
but second quarter they just got full
fizzled
of
out.
themselves. They you could just tell that they let their foot off the gas, and Zach Frazier had a bad game. Who would have thought? And even his bad game is still all conference level, but there was some one-on-ones that he missed that cost the team a drive. The drive. So it takes everybody playing 110% on every down. That was the formula going into that game, and they went away from it for whatever reason. They thought they could roll into Houston and win. They should know that each week in this league, that's not the reality. It doesn't matter what happened at the beginning of the season. Oklahoma State lost to South Alabama. Now they're 2-1 in the conference. It's a Mike Gundy led
Yeah.
team. Of course, they're going to get better. Of course, they're playing hot right now. Again, it's Oklahoma State. They've had so much success. So you're going to see this throughout the rest of the league. Teams are going to get better and stronger as the season goes along. And teams that West Virginia's played every year, the previous 11 seasons or 12 seasons, whatever it was before this year, they're very familiar with West Virginia. They're very comfortable in Morgantown at this point. So it's not going to get easier despite the records, despite who they've lost before. It's going to take every play for everybody to strain and give it everything they got.
And for some reason, it kind of did feel like the game plan going in was to strike fast or strike first, get a lead, and then once you get that lead, just kind of milk the clock, milk the clock, milk the clock, and then make them play your tempo or your style of game. And for whatever reason, it completely backfired on them. And then all of a sudden, you look up at halftime and they're trailing in a game that they shouldn't have been trailing at the half. But before we spin to the other side of the ball, when you look at what they had missing on that offensive line, Tomas Remack was out. He's going to be out again this week. He could be back by UCF. You're more than likely getting Wyatt Milan back this week. How much do you think that changes the success for this offense with just getting Milan back?
It's big. He's an all conference type player, whether he gets first team or not. He's still young. So he may not get that first team recognition yet, but he's been dominant all season long, especially in the running game. They really missed him last week. Still, and it's nothing against Nick Malone either, but when you had two guys that haven't really played it with each other, Belk did a good job. Defensive coordinator Doug Belk at Houston did a good job, kind of shifting things over there on the left side for West Virginia and just kind of confuse them in the run game. So going to need it. See what the chemistry is this week, because I'm sure they're going to look at it and probably try to take advantage of it. But having Millum over there is big. He takes up a lot of space and he just pushes people around, solidifies that edge. And I think just with Millum alone, it'll do. It's not that the left side was bad last week, but when you have an all conference type player up there, it makes a big difference how much push he gets off that line.
Absolutely. So going to the other side of the ball, a little self scout first before we go to what needs to happen this upcoming week. Donovan Smith was almost perfect last week, 21 to 27, 253, 4 touchdowns. Pass defense was just giving up way too many easy completions. Yards after the catch was a big issue in this one. They have fast, elite playmakers, and you talked about it last week that these guys are probably some of the best receivers they're going to see the rest of the year. So, and that showed up on tape. They ran the ball well, effectively, 5.4 yards a carry. When they did get the third down, though, they held them to 33%, 3 of 9. But it just felt like it wasn't a typical West Virginia defensive performance. And I get it, obviously when you give up 41 points, that's obvious. You're not playing your best football, but there's a lot of missed tackles. I don't know if there's a lot of miscommunication. Obviously, Ben Cutter stepping in at linebacker. They didn't get a whole lot of pressure on the quarterback, it felt like to me. And that's the biggest adjustment I think Jordan Leslie's got to make sometime, whether it's this week or next week. He's got to find a way to generate more pressure because Trey Lathan, man, I mean, for a redshirt freshman, I mean, he wasn't even expected to be a solidified starter heading into the year. That was kind of like a last second thing, and he exploded into this really good player. He had a ton of West Virginia's quarterback pressures. You take him out of the fold, it's a completely different mix of guys. And it's not the same defense. So Ben Cutter's a different style type linebacker. He's not going to really generate a whole lot of pressure, but you've got to find ways to get to the quarterback, and that seems like a pivotal point for this game this week against Allen Bowman.
Yeah, same thing you could say about the offensive line, offense. Same thing, defense. Just missed the strain. Bartlett on his one-on-one early and
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
Smith for a sack. That's really it. You could say there was a lot of holding. It was very inconsistent on holding calls throughout that game. Didn't really make a lot of sense. Bad game, bad night for the officials as well. Missed a lot there, but I'd like to see West Virginia get the benefit of that. Maybe they need to start wearing the same color gloves as the opponents because it seems like West Virginia just gets killed up front. But yeah, same thing defensively. But that Houston offense is talented. That's a veteran offensive line. That's very young receiving core that's full of talent. Sam Brown led the league. Don't know if he leads it this week still, probably does, but led the league in reception and yards. Like all the talent was there. You give them confidence without scoring and putting pressure on that offense to make them score. They were able to play free. When you allow teams to play free, that's talented. That's the kind of offense, and we've all seen it under Dana. Saw it under Dana here when he had young teams. When that team got it, they got it. Beat Oklahoma. Was it not? Yeah, was it Oklahoma State? Or Baylor in 2014 when or 13, whenever they were bad and Baylor was good, top 10 team, whatever. You saw the potential there. So that's another young Dana group that has a ton of talent. He's a great offensive coordinator. You just got to tip your cap to Dana on that one. I'd like to see the defense play a little better. All AB not being back there still probably hurt in that situation with the way Dana runs his offense. But we'll kind of see moving forward. Uh, kind of just take that up as Dana, chalk it up as Dana winning schematically in the second half and them just kind of having confidence when the offense didn't go up at least a touchdown for a half because allowing them to score right before halftime was the dagger for West Virginia.
So for Oklahoma State, the guy that stands out, I think it's fairly obvious when you look at them. It's all he running back. Last week he became, I think I heard this correctly in Gundy's press conference. He was the first player since Mike Gundy actually played at Oklahoma State. One of his teammates did it, where he went over 100 yards receiving and rushing in the same game. Last week against Kansas, he had 168 on the ground and a touchdown and 116 in terms of receiving yards and a touchdown. This kid is a do-it-all back. He's tough to tackle. I mean, he's 6'1", 211 pounds. He's big. He's physical, and I think that's to me that's going to be their formula moving forward. I think too. You get him the ball. I mean, they don't have a true dominant X receiver in this offense like we're all accustomed to seeing. It's kind of living in the backfield with Ollie Gordon, right?
Yeah, they've been spreading the ball around. This is again, you're going up against a group that's gaining confidence. You don't want to give Bowman confidence. He's played well the last 3 weeks since it's kind of been just pretty much it's been all him. They kind of struggled with quarterback early in the season, but they just turned the keys over to Bowman.
They were playing
And
musical chairs there for about a month or so.
yeah, well, the first two games it was a little bit everybody, and then it was kind of a mix, kind of like what they did with Garrett Green there for a while, where they were just kind of mixing guys in special packages. But they just, hey, this is our game plan now. This is what we're doing, and it's starting to pay off little by little. Um, but yeah, I think the game plan really is going in, stop the run and make Bowman beat you through the air, put pressure on him, make him feel the pressure in Morgantown. Crowd can get loud, and really distract the offense right off the bat. 5 yard penalty, get him behind the sticks. They are a team that if you get them behind the sticks, they're going to struggle, much like West Virginia did up until Houston. Even then, you get the team behind the sticks, almost devastating. So they are a lot alike on paper. If they can get the running game going, they're going to have success. They'll pick their spots in the passing game. I'd say they've opened it up a little bit more in the passing game. Obviously, get Ollie more involved as well. So it's a Gundy offense. You know, like Dana did in 2016. They're just trying to find what they're best at and take advantage of it within the defense. So it's going to be a West Virginia defense. Ben Cutter has played well. I thought he played well last week. He isn't really that kind of speed where he's going to come off the edge or anything, or he can get you up the middle, but He doesn't really have that speed, but he's tough, and you want to see Bartlett kind of win more of those matchups on the other side. Going to have those guys step up at Bandit really to start bringing pressure. Didn't really call Lockhart's name a lot last week. I really want to see a big one for him. That was a little bit disappointing for him. Of course, you can probably go back and watch tape on him and Eddie V and seeing their jerseys being tugged
Yeah.
a lot last Thursday. So I'd like to get the benefit on some of those calls. They start making some of those calls. They can't hold, obviously, and they can start breaking through a little bit more. But kind of is what it is. You play the cards that you're dealt, and you just want to see them push them back into the quarterback, do anything they can, make it known that they're being held, make sure that they see that jersey. Because I think that was one of the more disappointing. Lockhart, I think the two disappointers I see, I already mentioned Frazier, but Lockhart, not seeing that strain that you had all season, especially coming off a bye week, a little bit more rested. I know it's midway point of the season, easy for all of us to sit here and say, hey, put 110% in, but still beat up, I'm sure. Played a lot of physical games up to that point, so need to just get back to that on the defensive line, and they'll be able to get through a linebacker or two. We don't have to send so many numbers, but you can send in an extra guy because a guy like Lockhart should be taking up 2 blocks every single time.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's going to free
And
some.
Eddie V's actually been getting a lot of double team attention as well. So seeing those guys getting double team attention, you like to see Cutter getting there, but even Koba struggled to get in last week at times. Got a few pressures, but some of his blitzes he just wasn't really getting in there. So just got to do something. Again, kind of tip your hat to Dan last week, but I think the defense overall will be just fine. They were never going to be dominant, and they weren't going to, this is a good offense. Again, when you're playing in this league, it's going to be a battle each week, and there's a lot of film already at this point. You're halfway of the season. They're going to see what your tendencies are, what you do on third short, third medium, third long situations. They've got that film. They know what the corners' weaknesses are at this point, so they're going to get exposed at times. It's just going to be a matter of adjustment in the second half at this point.
Yeah, it's all about the response, right? I mean, that's what Neal Brown's talked about all week, and we'll see how they respond. So that'll do it for us here today on Between the Ears. That's Christopher Hall. I'm Schuyler Callihan. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Mountaineers Now. Follow us on X at the same thing. And we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to break down kind of our thoughts. We did it a couple of weeks into the season where we looked at the game-by-game predictions and kind of what we think we would change. We'll do that again with now that we're at the official midway point of the season. We'll take a look back at what we said in the preseason, and if we change any of those picks to see where we think West Virginia is going to wind up. And then Thursday, of course, Eugene will be with me for the Walkthrough Game Day show, breaking down West Virginia and Oklahoma State. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Take care.